Okay, let me call the meeting to order here for education, and thank all the visitors for coming and members for being here. We've got a robust calendar here to look at and to discuss, members. Students, I see a couple of students in the room that are in school. Raise your hand, students. Thank y'all for coming and continually learning. We appreciate you being here with us. We do what we do because of you. So thank you. And now educators, as I talk to you, you're my heroes. Raise your hand if you've taught or if you are a teacher. Let's recognize these daily heroes right here. And educators, thank y'all for what you do for these students and for this state. Educators. If I can, let me ask the Vice Chair, would you open us in a word of prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for each person gathered here. And please help the words of our mouth and our meditations of our heart be acceptable in your sight. Give us wisdom, direction, clarity, and be with us today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Great. Thank you. And members, if you got elected to develop policy and pass bills, today's your opportunity. So as an individual I worked with quite a bit, he said, let's go to work. So let's go to work on some of these bills and see what we can get. We've got the first one that I see on the list, might jump around a little bit depending on who can get here and who can't. Senator Wicks, I believe you're in the room. Thank you. If you would come straight up here, Senator, sit at the main table there. I'll get your microphone on. It is going to be Senate Bill 236. If you would read, Senator, your LC number to us, and then I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, Chairman.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Committee members, it's LC 461190S.
Perfect. That's what we got. The microphone is yours, Senator.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Chairman, committee members. Thank you all for allowing me to speak upon SB 236. This bill right here, which improves upon the existing bill of House Bill 59, further removes the barriers to enrollment options and facilitate the placement stability for military families with school-aged children who have recently been reassigned or pending orders to Georgia. Military families can be at a disadvantage when it comes to enrollment options available to their children due to the timely military directive move. Military families move quite frequently, changing school systems up to 10 times prior to graduation. In addition to planning permanent change of station PCS moves across the state lines, military families often must experience additional subsequent relocation from temporary permanent housing changes and limited ability military to community housing to the time of arrival. SB 236 expands the previous efforts of Georgia has made to support military school-aged children by streamlining the process for families to enroll their children ahead of arriving to military with their military orders to ensure school placement stability should there occur any mid-year relocation or temporary permanent change of housing due to their assignment into the state. And me being a 30-year Army veteran and having dependents and relocating from overseas, from Germany to a plethora of assignments, this bill right here would have been beneficial to me and my family. So that's why I am a champion for this bill and for the 14 million military families within the state of Georgia. And with over 30,000 school-aged children on active duty military families living in this state, and the third of which experienced PCS moves in the span of a year in Georgia, this unique position to have the high impact, a position, positive effort on our education experience of military children, this would be beneficial. So thank you for the opportunity to present this bill to you all.
Great, Senator, and good bill. And again, thank you for looking after our military children here and those military members within your bill. We had a question a little bit about the lines 25, 24, 25, and 26.
Yes, sir.
Or I did. Any further discussion on that about the end of the current year, or allowing local control a little bit on that time as far as looking for that residency of these children?
Yes, sir. And also I provided to the committee and yourself, Mr. Chairman, some sworn statements from Ms. Samantha, which is the Department of Defense state liaison for the Southeast region, and also from the school liaison from Robins Air Force Base. Basically, upon stabilization with our military children, at the end of the school year, if they don't reside within the current school district, they will relocate to the current district of residency.
Good. Well, we understand that, but going a step further, I want to talk about those children that are not residing, that are going to be moving into that system that you're allowing them to go to.
Yes,
right
sir.
Here. I think there just needs to be some consideration on those children that maybe the family is still living in the county at which they reside, obviously, but they're going to another county.
The ones that are currently there now, or the ones that are going to be relocating once they
Relocate.
when they relocate? So you want a timeline of a
How often are they checked that they are relocating, and is that still going to happen for those children?
Yes, sir. After speaking with Ms. Samantha, she said yes, that they will. There will be a check, or there will be a check on learning to make sure that they do that.
Okay. Okay.
And that's according to her sworn testimony that I did provide to you.
Okay. Let me do this with you, Senator. Let us continue. Let me let questions happen in your bill. And there's a possibility of, for those children not in the county which they are residing, but the one that they are going to attend outside, propose some language that I think will be a friendly amendment to try to give the local system the option of those children as far as how long and whether or not the parents are really making that move into their system and residing. But we can discuss that further if this bill moves on. Number 17, I'll go to you, I believe.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes.
Thanks for fighting and supporting our military. On page 2, line 17 at the very top, it says intends to reside. That would appear to be somewhat vague, I believe, as it relates to what does intend mean? And then I'm thinking about high school athletics. One could intend to go to a school to play the sport, but not necessarily locked in. I'm just curious if there's maybe better language than intends to reside. I think that leaves us open. Your thoughts on that?
In reference to line 17,
Intends, yes, the
Intends to
underlying
reside.
section there.
I think so.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Representative, what are you thinking there? Are you thinking more definitive definition than
Well,
intends? Or?
Knowing how, not that families would ever do this, I'm sure, but there are instances where someone would intend to go to a school, get their child in the school, play in a sport, and then they no longer intend to go there after the season's over or move on to somewhere else. I think it makes it somewhat maybe not in the best interest of high school sports as it relates, and I don't even know as it relates to Chairman, as you were speaking as well, on the end of the year and all that, how the money flows and all that.
So in reference to that, we did talk about that yesterday because that was a point that was made up. Ultimately, there's local policies in reference to when it comes to sports. In reference to the guidance, in reference to a individual going to a school in reference to sports. This bill right here is only for military members PCS into the district that they're assigned into. When it comes to managing a individual coming to a school or a district based upon them being able to govern themselves in reference to playing a sports, there's local policies and procedures in place for that to manage individuals not being able to like go to this school because this school has better sports or this school doesn't have better sports. And also it was also brought to this school does have ROTC or this school doesn't have ROTC. So that's why there's local policies and procedures in place for that. This bill is only designed for military members using their orders just so they can get ahead of the ball game in reference to, hey, I want to try to get my son or school age child registered in school. But I understand what you said, but that was brought to my attention after the subcommittee was done.
Okay. Chairman, follow up? Or?
Yes, just one, please.
Okay. Because it references a lease or a purchase, and I do know that unfortunately there are bad actors out there that will create leases or purchases where they intend to reside. And just that verbiage is just something I'm concerned about.
Correct.
Thank you.
Let me do this, and I see other questions. There's what I would consider pretty easy cleanup language.
Yes, sir.
That would help. We'll have it read, and then we'll work the bill, is what I'll say, and then we will look to see if that's a friendly amendment and kind of go from there.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Legislative Counsel, do you mind telling us what the suggestion is there?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee might consider inserting on line 21 after local school system, semicolon, provided, however, that such enrollment shall be provisional, subject to written verification provided to the school principal or his or her designee within 90 days of the first day of such provisional enrollment in such school, that such student's parent or guardian has established residency or has made sufficient good faith efforts to establish residency in such attendant zone.
So in other words, they're making an effort to go live there where they're sending their children. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
We'll come back and have discussion on that, members, in a minute. Let me try to work around the room on these questions. I believe number 22, you were next. Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I believe that amendment language kind of covered my question, because what our military families do run into is often you move somewhere, you are living on base while you're looking for a house, and that base might not be where you ultimately want to live, and you want your children to go to the school that they're ultimately going to go to. But I think that amendment language probably satisfies everything and will keep, not that anybody ever is a bad actor, but it'll
Yeah.
it'll keep everybody on the up and up, but it'll still provide that that help to our military families.
back to Legislative Council for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do think it would be appropriate if I'm to just tighten, to close the circle then, at the end of line 25 and the beginning of line 26, instead of the conclusion of the current school year, that then would read the conclusion of the 90-day provisional enrollment period. So that if they have not completed that, if they haven't established residency or made good faith effort to establish residency within 90 days, they would have to enroll in the school system where they reside.
Okay. Number 26, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out in the letter that came from the DOD, from Samantha Slaney,
Yes, sir.
that they were requesting or suggesting adding 60 days, and that's in the second to last paragraph. Just almost at the bottom. Do you see that?
I have, oh yeah, I see it right there at the bottom.
But 90 will give them more of a leeway.
And that's okay?
Yes.
Okay.
90 would be better.
Okay.
Yes.
And I have one more, if I could, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Just when you receive your PCS orders, everything's written out. It's a sheet of paper. It's actually several sheets of paper, and they give your location. So it's pretty permanent. It's,
Pretty clear.
yeah.
Got you. Okay.
And she said that's 60 days at the end of the school year. In her letter, she's saying that's 60 days at the end of the school year. It's okay.
Number 25.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this bill. I think we do need to do more, and I think there's more things we can explore after this, too, to help
you.
out our veterans, and whether it's charter schools or whatever else, I think that may be an option in the future, too. But with this bill, in general, one thing to follow up earlier about Georgia High School, something if we need to clean up to make it, am I correct, Chairman? The way it reads now, they would be able to play sports. Georgia High School would have to go along with this bill because the law would supersede any regulations or policies they have. So if you wanted to clean that up, you could. If not, then I think I like the 90 days, and then knowing the kid may be kicked off the team in 90 days if that hasn't been secured or whatever else. So I didn't know if there's something you want to kind of tighten up anywhere, or I'm still good with the language, but just because of the conversation, something to think about.
I have a question in reference to clarity. What would you mean by high school? Because the seniors and juniors.
You mentioned you were thinking their policies would supersede it, where it wouldn't matter regarding sports. But if I'm reading this correctly, and we put this into law, into code, this would supersede anything Georgia High School has. So this would trump what they have. And so they'd be immediately eligible to play, I would assume, being state law, which is fine with me, knowing, though, they still have that 90-day clock on them, if I'm reading that correctly. So you were kind of mentioning it didn't matter. If it doesn't matter, then we need to put a tweak in there, I would think, to not do that. If we don't put a tweak in there, we just have to make sure the parents know that your kid's on the clock for 90 days regarding pulling them out in the middle of a football season or softball season or something like that.
I'm in agreement with you, too. We can put a clause in
I just
there.
want to make sure that they understand either way. Just that way it's clear for the parents.
Okay.
I don't want to surprise them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. I think number 2 was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize if you already covered this, but I guess in line 26 through 28, do I read this correctly, that if you're already in the school and you move your junior, senior year, then you can continue to remain in that school? Is that what that line is saying? Right?
That's
So
correct.
is it under current law, if a student is in that school, I thought a principal can then give them permission to stay in that school as long, like say you're in Cobb County and you're in one school and your family moves to another school, I thought that they could allow you to stay in that school for the whole term as long as the principal is okay with it. Is that not how it works in other districts?
That's a local decision and done differently all over the state.
Correct. So would this supersede that or no? Would
For
the
these
local still have
military
that?
kids, that would.
So a military child would have to move if they moved in within Cobb. If they moved within Cobb, they would, state law would then supersede because they are a military child, or would they?
They'll be allowed to stay in their school they're in. And generally, I will tell you, as a junior and senior, it's best not to move them their last year. Let them finish out. And that's what this is stating, is that they can stay in that school, finish their high school, get the diploma. Now, they could also move if they wanted to, but this law allows them the ability to stay their junior and senior year.
Correct, but I guess what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman.
Wait a minute, let me cut you back on. There you go.
I guess what I'm trying to get clarification on is currently, like, when we moved as, maybe I shouldn't say this, but when we moved as middle schoolers, we wanted to stay in our current middle school, and we were allowed to based on the principal's, and that's common, I think. Principal says you're okay, you're fine. You moved, you don't want to ruin your middle school years. So we were allowed to do that. I just want to make sure that this does not change that local ability to do that. Okay.
Does not. Number 17.
This is in regards to your question. So the students, when they come in, would be referred to as migrant under GHSA, which makes them ineligible for varsity competition. The hardships then are filed and processed, and something I just received was enrollment and eligibility are very different things. They would not be eligible for varsity if they're out of zone. If there's military kids, they're GHSA sympathetic to that, but there's a hardship process that they must go through. So that helps you, at least under GHSA, understanding what they're very different from this bill.
Yes, sir, Representative.
Then if we wanted to protect those kids, we would just put this into the bill to make sure they're protected and they wouldn't be declared migrant, correct?
That's correct.
And that's what I would suggest.
We've exhausted the members. Any questions? So what is the will of the committee on Senator's bill here, SB 236? We've got a motion to pass. We have a second. Let's have discussion on this amendment and how you feel about it, Senator, here as some directive language, I think, or clarification language. Can we read that language again, Legislative Council?
Yes, beginning on line 21, after local school system, we would insert semicolon, provided, however, that such enrollment shall be provisional, subject to written verification provided to the school principal or his or her designee within 90 days of the first day of such provisional enrollment in such school, that such student's parent or guardian has established residency or has made sufficient good faith efforts to establish residency in such attendance zone. Then to make what I would consider to be necessary and appropriate conforming changes to the rest of the bill, I would recommend inserting at the end of line 22 after intended to reside or verify sufficient good faith efforts to establish residency. And I would add at line 25 and 26, I would replace current school year with 90-day provisional enrollment period.
Okay. Senator, I'm going to offer that as an amendment. Would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, sir, but I was looking at one of the committee members. He wanted to say something.
Well, wait a minute. You don't focus in on him yet. Now. I need your eyes up here. We'll take care of him in a second.
He wanted to say something to me.
Yeah, well, I'm just offering, let's offer that as an amendment. And is that friendly to you?
Okay, so basically, this bill is saying that within 90 days, the children, the school-age children have to provide proof of residency within 90 days.
No,
No.
they have to provide a good faith effort at
Okay.
minimum to residing there. They don't have to have bought a house or moved.
Okay.
What he's putting in there is that there's a period in time that they're given to look, and if they're doing that, they turn in a letter, the principal, student stays.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We have an amendment in this language. Let's do that before we have discussion on the amendment. Let's get a second. Is there a second? Okay, we have an amendment and a second. I think we've talked enough. Let's vote on the amendment to the Senate Bill 236. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, the amendment will then pass. Let's have discussion on it. Ooh, y'all cut off your lights on me. I thought we were going to have some robust. Here you go. There you go,
Now, the
Representative.
second piece, just work without the representative, and maybe we can phrase it correctly. But I'm concerned if, with military orders, you guys, military moms or families, let me know this, but if they're getting transferred by the military into a certain area and they intend to move to that and buy a house or apartment, and I think we're putting enough stress into them, especially if they're moving into that situation, without making them go through hardship. With this bill, I think we can also help those students out of military families and give them whatever we need to do to allow them to play sports the first 3 months, and be strict about it. And if they don't have their paperwork, they can't play after that. That's a big deal. But is that possible? From what I understand, that should be possible within this code or whatever else. And I'm just thinking about the families and the kids. And if a kid's getting transferred from out west to Fort Stewart or wherever, I can't imagine them transferring just for basketball or football for 3 months. I don't think the military will move a family for 3 months and that's it. So I think that's one way to protect those kids, or support those kids would be better way to say that. And that's nothing against Georgia High School. I respect them. They do an amazing job. I'm just trying to look out for those kids.
Okay. Legislative Council, any response?
Mr. Chairman, I'm really not familiar enough with Georgia High School sports eligibility requirements to be able to propose language that I think would thread that needle. What I might recommend could do more harm than good, for all I know. And I would be reluctant to do that.
I mean, I could either try the language, or we could skip it and just try to. You have to. Yeah, you have next year. I mean, that's kind of your choice here. You're on the clock, unfortunately. So you may want to take your win and take the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
And work on this later, if you know what I mean. No pun intended.
I'll take the win.
Yeah, I'm going to take one more, and then let's try to keep moving here. Number 29.
Thank you, Chairman. And I may be wrong about this, so I think that it's a good question, but I don't think that GHSA has something that would bar a student that has provisional residency that's in the military, that created the change, that would somehow put their eligibility for athletics in jeopardy. Because Dahloneg's in my district. We have a lot of military families in which those students end up in our system, and I believe, I've got a former superintendent of that district, he can nod at me, if there was a military kid that got transferred and they were provisionally there, they would be able to play sports. So I don't think that is a major issue when it comes to eligibility for military family students. So anyway, just want to clarify that.
Okay, members, I think we got a good bill before us here. Let me put this up. We've had a motion and a second, and has been amended. Let's time to vote on it if we can. All in favor of LC 461190S, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Good job. Now I need to ask you, Senator, who are you asking in the House to carry this bill?
by military veteran David Clark.
Good job. Good suggestion there. Okay, that's what we needed. Let's give him a mission to get this bill moving into rules. He'll know the process. Thank you. Good bill.
Thank you
Senator.
so much, Chairman, committee members. Thank you so much.
Chairman, you should have asked that before.
Yeah, you might have changed your vote. I hear you. All right, do we have Senator Dixon in the room? There he is, right in front of me. Come on down, Senator Dixon. Let's do SB 63. We'll do numerical by you because I believe you have two bills before us today. Senator, thank you, and thank you for your legislation and efforts as always. Many of you members know that Senator Dixon has been chairman of education over in the Senate, and proud of his work at that, colleagues. So we will turn, if you would read your LC number at the top that you're working from, and then we'll turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to tell your members that you were a great mentor to me those 2 years as I served as education chairman. I always joke with folks that he forgot more about education than I'll ever know, but grateful for your friendship and working with you, though.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, working off of, for Senate Bill 63, working off LC 492359S.
Wait a minute.
It's listed different for us because it's the floor amendment.
What's that?
It's the floor amendment. Let us give you one with the name that is listed different from us.
What's that? Okay.
We've been known to move some language in bills, but this is your language.
Yes.
Yeah. It was floor amended, this bill was,
That's
and
correct.
that's how it came to us. So read that number at the top then.
Yes, sir. And then I did have and this may have not gotten to you, and if it hadn't, then I'll just leave it alone because I don't want to muck the bill up. But I had a substitute that I thought had made its way to you, but I guess maybe it hadn't. Okay.
No, we just have what y'all sent to us, and that's
Okay.
it.
Well, then we'll just work off that then.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
sir. All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll try that one more time. SB 63 /FA.
Gotcha. That's the one from Mike Shears.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah, where this started coming from, no lobbyist or anybody under the Gold Dome. Just started hearing a couple of years ago from homeschool families in my home county of Gwinnett, with our largest school system in the state. And it grew. The first year I heard from them 2 years ago, reached out to our superintendent in Gwinnett County, and they did make some accommodations for these homeschoolers to take the advanced placement testing for college. The students did have to pay for it, and they did have to drive a considerable distance in Gwinnett County. Some of them did. It was in the southern part of the county that year. And as many of you know, Representative Hilton understands the traffic issues we've got in Gwinnett, and it can take an hour certain times a day to get across the county, which makes it difficult for these families having to take off work, and things of that nature, to accommodate for that testing. Simply what this bill does is it would require the child's residency school, if they attended that school, to offer or be accommodating for those advanced placement testing. And simply they would still have to apply or register for that test. So the residency school would know, the student would be registered there. They would have the information of the student. They would be able to accommodate, because I understand that, with this testing, it's rigid. The desks have to be so far apart, and there's several standards that have to take place to accommodate. But since these children would have to register, the school system would have time to accommodate, or I believe they would, for those students to come and take that test. And actually, I heard one case from a mom that lived in Albany and had to drive up to Columbus, where she had to get a hotel, spend the night, take a day off from work. Some more parts of rural Georgia, I think it may be even a bigger issue than my home county of Gwinnett. But I think it was last week or the week before, we had homeschool day here, and there were a couple hundred of those kids across the state. We've got, substantial homeschool population, in the state. And one of the concerns from local school systems, of course, number one is safety, which, Mr. Chairman, I know that's one of your priorities.
Yep.
But these students are, they are that this would be their residency school if they attended that school. They would have to register, so the school system would have the information on the child and would be able to accommodate, where, as far as security measures, letting them in the school or whatnot, they just wouldn't show up at the school. So I think that helps mitigate that issue. And then dealing with cost was another one I heard, another kind of pushback on it. And I would simply say, being a taxpayer myself, these families are paying their local taxes, living in the county. They're also paying their state taxes. They're just not utilizing, the school system. So I don't see that being a burden because the school system's still getting the dollars for that child. And currently in the state, it's estimated about 7,100 students, homeschool students that are in high school. So you're talking about a pretty small population. And the overall, I know in subcommittee talked about cost, the overall total cost for the testing, and that's for all the students, is about $11,000 a year. So it's like 0.00019% of the overall budget. It's a very small amount of money. So I knew that was another issue. And then, of course, then liability was something else. But like I said, you've got folks coming on the school grounds quite often. But with that, Mr. Chairman, be happy to answer any questions.
Well, let me first state thank you, Senator Goodbill, and the fact that, we encourage kids to stretch themselves, learn more, go do testing, prepare for that testing. So thank you for looking after this group of students. And with that, I'm going to go in order by which I saw them, number 14.
Thank you, Chairman. Hey, Chairman Dellman.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. So after the subcommittee, we had some additional discussions. And I think there was still some ambiguity around what gets paid. So the question that I asked you yesterday was, there are some costs to take the exams. However, the school doesn't necessarily pay for them. And I think what you said, if there was a cost, and if the school did not pass the cost to the parents, then the schools would be obligated to pay for the homeschool students. And I think some clarity that Chairman Scott Hilton shared with me yesterday, that one of the tests in particular, I think it was AP, that the schools fronted but the parents reimbursed it. So can you help me understand, maybe just clear up that aspect of the cost, because that's what I was trying to understand yesterday, because you were saying one thing, they were saying something else, and then, like I said, it got a little muddy for me.
Yeah, if the parents are charged or reimbursed or however that is, then the homeschool parents would be treated the same as the residency students, so they would have to do that reimbursement as well.
That was just one example, but I'm saying if there's a cost, period, and I think we had a conversation around, we know that we're not going to allow like a surcharge, but if there's any cost at all for any of these exams that we discussed, and I think one, they said the PSAT was like $18 or something, but you're saying regardless of the cost, if there's a cost, that the school would pick up the cost if the parents are not paying for the cost, regardless of what the exam is.
I'm sorry, I was reading, I apologize.
That's okay. So regardless of what the exam or the cost, if the parents, with the students that are attending those schools, if the parents are not paying that cost, then the homeschool students would have their costs paid for by the school, regardless of what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the bill. I understand why there's a need for it, but I also have questions about the cost that we may have to figure out at a later time, because my understanding is, I'll go in order, PSAT, for example, 10th grade, the state pays for it. Is that correct? I'm looking at DOE, state pays for it. So in this case, will they pay for a homeschool student to take it at that school? Will they, because DOE is paying for the students that are already there, are they going to pay for the homeschool students as well, or is the school going to eat that cost? And maybe this is a DOE question at some point, unless you know that answer.
Yeah, may want to ask them on specifics on that. The way it's written, if there's no cost to the students, the enrolled students, there wouldn't be a cost to the homeschool student. But if there is, whether it's reimbursement or an upfront cost, then the homeschool family would have to pay just the same as the enrolled student.
Well, in this case, there is a cost. It's just that the state picks it up. That's why I'm trying to figure out if the state's going to pick up the cost for the homeschool students as well. And that is I guess, a DOE question. And Mr. Chairman, if they could, because I have another question for DOE too. So, unless you want me to wait for them to come up.
Let us give DOE a minute, and then I'll ask them up, representative, to try to respond to you. So just give me a moment. 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the author. Fantastic bill. I just wanted to recognize, technically not a constituent, but a fellow churchgoer of mine in the front row with her children, and thank you all for coming. I think the question was asked in subcommittee, why wouldn't we do this? And I thought that was just kind of struck at why this is such a good common sense bill. I think it would be good for DOE to come answer some of those, because I want to make sure y'all are comfortable. The language, as I read it a second time, it did make sense to me, but it would be good to hear directly from them. I think it's saying essentially, if the school covers it, they're going to continue to, kind of putting everyone at parity. If they cover it for these students, they'll cover it for if they do charge, you can charge the homeschool student. And maybe I see DOE talking back there. I'm trying to filibuster to give them time. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to put in, if I can, Mr. Chairman, just to put into perspective, I've got some numbers here, and this is just for the PSAT. It's about 20,300 students that take that test statewide annually. And then as far as the percentage of students that take that test out of is about 8.6%. And so the estimated high school students that are homeschooled, so the high school homeschool students is a total of about 7,080 students. And of course, that's 9th, 10th, then you get to 11th, 12th grade. So it's just a small percentage of those students that would be taking that. And so the cost would be comparatively very low.
Very small, yeah.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, 25.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And Chairman, thank you for this bill. It's a great bill. Just wanted to say thank you. And then two, and it's probably too late to ask for this. I should have read more in depth earlier. Did you ever think about adding the ASVAB to that list of tests?
I would be open to that, my friend. Yeah, if that's the will, I'd leave that to the will of the committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Senator. Thank you for bringing the bill. Really quick question, just around, do we know how much it costs per exam? I'm sure it's small, but I'm just curious what that figure is.
I do know. I think the SAT, I think it's $18 per student. Okay. I may be off on that. An estimate that I do have as far as the estimated cost of exams for homeschool high school students in Georgia, and that's for all of these tests, would be about $10,962.
And that figure of PSAT takers, the number of students who take the test annually, I believe you mentioned
20,000. That's just the PSAT. It's 20,300.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Number 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Chairman, thanks for bringing this bill, certainly in support of it. Maybe just a quick note from those who don't sit on our Education Appropriations Subcommittee. We have made it a priority over the last few years, as Chairman Dixon knows, that tests like this and AP exams, that we're funding exams for our students, our current students to take. Some qualify based on free and reduced lunch status. Others qualify to receive tests for free. And so just to point out that we're putting, that's a 7-figure number that we're putting in the budget on an annual basis to support some of our tests. And so I agree with Chairman Hilton and the approach of bringing this into parity. These are students, as Chairman Dixon said, their families are paying
that local portion of their tax dollars and are not taking advantage of that local school system. So proud to support this in the budget, proud of fellow members of that subcommittee who are here, and I know our friends at DOE will comment here as well, but just wanted to add that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's check to see if DOE is nimble enough to get to the microphone and give us an answer now. Podium is yours. State who you are to the members again, if you would.
Sure. Matt Cardoza, Department of Education. So we're looking back at budget language because it was in a budget back whenever PSAT was put in there, AP was put in there for one free for economically disadvantaged, one for STEM, to see what budget language says. 'Cause as we get invoices from College Board for those kind of things. They don't differentiate all those numbers, but we're almost certain that it was just public school students. But we'll waiting to find out for sure from the people looking back at the budgets that where this language was originally.
Okay, let's go to number 2 again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it doesn't sound like it's a lot of money. So but I think that is something that we made it to look at because, as Matt mentioned, is free and reduced lunch, any exam, AP exam, economically disadvantaged. Free and reduced lunch, any exam. Everybody else a STEM exam. But if you're homeschooling, I'm assuming they're not going to submit that information to a school. So we'll probably have to, at some point as we guide through this, figure out what exam they get to take. The PSAT, that's not borne by the local district for most of these kids in 10th grade unless they take it for 11th grade because they want to get the net or whatever grade they give it in. I think different districts give it in different grades if they have additional funding. So I like the bill, just saying that if you're open to it, I would love to make sure that we come back next year and make sure that districts aren't being harmed financially on this. But thank you.
Yeah, be glad to look at that.
Number 14.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think that's the direction that we're going. And Chairman Dubney, thank you for sharing that. I think if we could clean up, and I think this one might be friendlier than the one I had yesterday, but if we could put language in there to clean up, if there are some parameters around which students have their exams paid for, and I know it's a little more detail, but I think if we can cover that, because I agree with you, and I especially agree with you that a parent should not have to drive 3 or 4 hours if there's a location close to them. But I do believe if we're going to do parity, that a homeschool student parent should have the same parameter as a public school parent in whether or not they're going to have to pay for that exam. So I think having some documentation available is going to be relevant. And I think the other thing that was brought up with the PSAT, that the state only pays for 10th graders, I think it is, and then the other students don't. So as long as we can clean that up, because for the most part, I think we all do agree with this legislation. Yeah.
Okay, number 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To my friend's point, I do, as Chairman Hilton referenced, I do believe that lines 23 through 27 do address that, as it says, shall pay, a fee not required of students enrolled in such local school system. I do trust our friends in Legislative Council and in the fact that does clarify what would be available and what would be allowed. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion at the appropriate time.
Okay, I'll take 2 more, and let's be quick. We got quite a bit to do today, but thank you. Number 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we're talking about cost here and the fees, and I know everyone's focused on the fees, but wouldn't there be additional staffing cost? Because, of course, when you increase the number of students attending, the proctors, and so on and so forth, aren't we considering those costs as being part of those costs, being the overall cost?
Yeah, I would go back to, and of course I don't have a crystal ball, but I would imagine, any of these testing sites you're talking about, just a handful, I'd say, just 3 or 4, or just a few students that would be added to that. I wouldn't imagine that it would be that rigorous, but I would go back to, these families they're paying their taxes. The enrolled students that are utilizing the school system, they're paying the same taxes, but they're not they're not utilizing. And of course, it is by choice, I understand that, but they are paying those tax dollars that fund that school. So they would be a net positive to that school system, and even if you add that testing to it, it's such a phenomenal amount, just a small amount, that I don't see it being a detriment to the school system. Those students would still be an asset. I guess I probably could use better words than that, but they are paying their tax dollars but not utilizing the school system, so they're a net positive, even with the testing, I believe.
Yeah, but I think we should still have the full total cost, right? Because if it includes fees and everything else, we should also consider, in addition, those other fees.
Okay, last question I'm going to let go, and then we'll see what the will of the committee is. 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a question from an online watcher here in regards to accommodations. So say a child gets approved for accommodations, longer testing period, I don't know, different font size, or my guess is when they register for that college exam, maybe through the school would know about the accommodations somehow. I mean, and I'm trying to look at shaking heads too, would they know about that? Would they be able to prepare or be ready for when that student comes to be able to administer the test with those accommodations?
Yes, I would imagine so. Yeah, since they're registering, the school would know in advance of that.
Okay. Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to pass.
Okay, we have a motion to do pass.
He already done it, but
he's okay with a second. You were rushing that one, weren't you? Trying to get me in trouble on both sides of me surrounding here. All right, we're going to cut your microphone off right now. Don't ask another question. We've got a motion to pass. We've got a second. We need to vote on this bill. Let me look at the number again. It was SB 63FA is what we are voting on.
You might have that amendment.
Yes, but you're right. We do have an amendment. You're right. We did, don't we? Number 25.
Yeah, it's just a friendly amendment if you want to add it. I know time's crunch time, so your choice at all. It was just an idea. I had to throw it out there.
It would be considered friendly to me. I'll leave it to the will of the committee, but
yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to add ASVAB to the list.
We're going to work on this amendment now, if we can, members. We're going to add the ASVAB test for the military, if you get to go, so you get a chance to get in the military. I will tell you that we need more knowledge of the test for more of our citizens, so
it's a great test. Yeah.
That would do it. But adding the ASVAB test has been, we're voting on the amendment, is what I'm telling you. Adding Legislative Council ASVAB in there. What lines would you put that on and read that to us, please?
On line 15, Mr. Chairman, I would delete or between pre-ACT and ACT, so that would be pre-ACT, comma, ACT, comma, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, comma, or an advanced placement exam. And I would make the identical change on line 23.
Sounds good. Second. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add ASVAB to the line of tests given. We have a question, number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is ASVAB given in the schools, or do they arrange for the military recruiter to come give it? I know some do, like we have some that do it, and then some others, they arrange for someone to come and give it to them.
It's a local decision.
Correct.
Some school systems do it, some school systems don't.
So for a homeschool student, they could call up my local school, and then they have to arrange it for them?
It'd be set up like the other testing, where it's set up by the school system. Yeah.
Only if they provide it on campus?
Yeah.
Because they provide it, but it's off campus?
School system, yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the amendment to add ASVAB. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. All right, amendment carries. Now let's vote on your bill, Senator, if we can, as amended. I think I've already read the number to you as amended. By the way, this one's gotten amended a bunch, not only in Senate, but here. So, good work, members. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. All right, your bill carries. Do you have time? You ready to go to your next bill?
Absolutely.
82?
And your lovely Vice Chairman, Representative Rice, has agreed to carry 63, if you need that. Yes, sir.
There you go. Thank you. All right. We're going to move on, if we can, to your next bill and leave you in the seat, Senator. SB 82, if you would, as I believe you're providing a substitute to us, so if you would read your number to us on 82, and then I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Working off of LC 492365S.
That's correct. Mic is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Senate Bill 82 addresses the state's charter school access issue. It has incentives in there for local school districts that approve more charter schools, but it also has, it holds them accountable if they repeatedly deny high-quality charter school petitions. And simply, why this bill is needed, currently there's about 21,000 students in the state that are on wait list for charter schools, and this is across the state. Unfortunately, in the past 5 years, only one charter school has been approved at the local level. And in that same time frame, there's been over 30 that have been approved at the state level. And, as far as comparing us to other states, typically nationally, it's a 90% approval rating at the local level and 10% at the state level. So you can see, the disparity there we have. And then also the cost, and this is just a general cost. I know it can be vastly different, but when they're approved at the state level, when the state is, footing most of the bill, it's about $4 million a year, and then you could cut that in half to the state's liability if it's approved at the local level. As far as the incentives or the carrot in Section 5, it would allow districts to earn $250,000 for a period of 3 years when they approve charter school locally. The accountability measures, there's two things there. If a school district has 10,000 to 60,000 students, if they deny a high-quality charter school, if they deny 2 charter schools petitions in the same year, and then they're later approved by the state, they would lose their eligibility to renew their flexibility contracts. If the school system's larger, if it's 60,000 students or larger, it would go to 3. They would have to deny 3 that are approved by the state to lose that. We've worked with our colleagues at DOE, GSSA, and GSABA to incorporate requested changes into this committee substitute that you've got in front of you. It strikes one of the carrots, if you will, the capital outlay provision, and then it also strikes the school choice rating system, which was previously included in the bill. And then it also adds a provision in there. It creates a sunset in 2035, so a 10-year sunset would be the changes to that substitute. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Good, Senator. Thank you for working so hard with the different groups on this bill. Number 25.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, thank you for this bill. I think the tweaks you've done really strengthen the bill, and I think gives accountability to the school systems who refuse to choose a charter to just select one if it's a good one. But it also allows them to, and to me, it's a good process. So I appreciate the hard work you put into it.
Thank you very much.
Number 3.
Oh, Lord, that's me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question, actually. You changed the, line 83. If if the local board denies a petition and it's got to give a written statement of denial, I'm assuming that if something is denied now, there is something written. What's the process now when somebody like denies a charter school? I'm assuming they don't just say no, go away, and there's nothing in writing. Like, what needs to be submitted now?
Right. No, that is a good question. I may call on.
You can ask her to come up,
Okay.
just as long as
Thank
she
you.
introduces herself to the committee from Charter Association there, I believe.
I'm Bonnie Holliday from the Georgia Charter Schools Association. What happens now is we haven't changed anything about what happens when a charter school is denied at the local level or the state level. It varies from district to district because they set up their own processes, but typically there is a notification to the school. If they're denied, there is a notification to the school. However, the way it's written is if there's no notification, 90 days, if 90 days elapse between the submission of the petition and no action by the district, it constitutes a denial. That rarely happens.
Okay. And is there any way to, we slashed from 60 to 10, which is a big number. Is there any way to get that 10 like doubled to 20 or 30?
Yes.
Okay. Would you accept that as a friendly amendment to maybe 30 days instead of 10? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Number 14.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. So one of my questions, you've already accepted that friendly amendment because I thought 60 to 10 was a lot. But the other thing you have in here is if a school district denies a charter petition for a high-quality local charter, and and maybe I missed it, is that defined somewhere? Because that's kind of subjective, and I think most school boards are really trying to do the best thing that they are for students. But if we're going to hold them accountable, I just want to make sure that we're defining what that really is, and it's not subjective.
Great question, Representative. And it basically what it says is if the trigger would be if the state later approves that charter. So if they're denied at the local level and then later the state approves it, and that would have to happen twice if they have 10,000 to 60,000 students enrolled. If that happened twice, then that's when the stick would come in, I guess, if you will.
Yep.
I'm looking at line, is this 134? Mm-hmm. The terminology is high quality. So are you saying that if the state approves a charter school and the state deems that charter school high quality and the local had previously denied them, is that where that's triggering?
That's correct. They would have to deny two. And then if you've got a larger school system with over 60,000 enrolled, it would be denial of 3 that were later approved by the state.
No, not general approvals. I'm saying this, you have language in here that says high quality. Mm-hmm. I think that's where some ambiguity may be for me.
Right, but they have to be approved by the state at a later time. And I went through this, the town of Brazelton in my district that encompasses 4 counties. They were denied by Jackson County and later approved by the state for 4 Points Academy. And that's the only one I've been personally involved in. They had their charter board, they had their local board, they had 500 petitions, students that wanted to be enrolled. They owned a building, everything was set up in place and were denied, like many of these are, and later approved by the state. And that's what the. Oh yeah, if you would, thank you.
Just to offer a data point on high quality, the reason that we use the state as the trigger for high quality is because 85% of the state charter schools' current portfolio outperforms the districts that they serve in either student growth or academic performance. So I think you were looking for data, so that's what I just added some data.
All right, we're going to go to 25.
At the proper time.
We're going to go to 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The numbers you guys shared in subcommittee were staggering, and maybe you touched those again. In the last 10 years, the state has approved 50 charter schools. The locals have approved 3. You and I, Mr. Chairman, we serve Gwinnett County, the largest in the state. Can you tell me how many charter schools do we have in Gwinnett County?
1 currently that's operating.
And the largest county?
Over 180,000 students.
Okay. The proper time.
You fooled me on that one time, so it won't happen again. Number 4.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I wasn't present for the subcommittee conversation. The numbers that you presented jump out and kind of just punch you in the mouth. Trying to understand why, and I don't, imagine that you know their position at the local level and why they're not approving as many petitions as we are at the state. What's been that pushback or opposition? I'm just trying to understand what's at the heart of it. The last thing I want to do is us take on a posture saying that we know what's best for those local communities. And so what have you been hearing during your conversations around like why the pushback?
And your chairman could probably speak to more experience than I have, but with the one charter school that I dealt with, and it was over about a year process, it was pretty rigorous, and they had everything in place. They were well funded. They were set up great, and the locals denied them. And I don't want to put words in their mouth, but my opinion would be that over competition and loss of enrollment.
Okay.
Yeah.
We heard just this week in an article out of the Rome area in Floyd County where a district was actually supportive of a local charter petition that came through, but ultimately they denied it and they said we're supportive of it, but we would prefer the state pay for it. So in some cases, it has become, there's been a tremendous amount of deference to the State Charter Schools Commission since it was set up in 2012. And so we're trying to right-size that because with 21,000 students on wait lists, the state can't possibly meet that demand on its own. So we just need more good local district partners. And frankly, charter schools are better off when they are approved locally. And I don't think there's a state charter school out there that would say any different.
Back and follow
Go
real quick,
very
Chairman.
quickly. We are lit up.
It seems as if like funding is at the core of their opposition, and it's important for us to raise that up because I don't think that that tightness is going to go away anytime soon.
Well, I would just point out that the Georgia Public Policy Foundation did publish an article this year in January, actually, that said that the reserves of the districts collectively represent a number that's greater than the state's entire rainy day fund.
Yeah, and I've read articles that say that our per pupil spend is like 40th in the country. So again, I understand the position. I'm not against charters. I'm just saying that that position, the position of our local school districts, and why they're opposed to this, because they're not just saying no just to say no if it's going to benefit their children and their communities. But that position needs to be a part of this conversation. But I appreciate the context. Thank you.
Let me state this to members. I'm going to take one more question, and then we're going to put this up. If we get a motion and a second, let me tell you why. We're looking at two pretty extensive bills. This room we're good for about 45 or less minutes in here that we need to get to. Number 2, I believe you were the first one blinking.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 quick questions, hopefully. One, these schools that are subsequently approved by the State Charter School Commission, are they using the same application they did for the local, or did they get the local and they realize there's a problem and then submit something different? Is it the same application?
It's the same application, yes.
So the same details, they didn't give any
That's
new
correct.
information? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And then 2, how many state charter schools have closed in the last few years?
I don't know that number.
I don't have the number on that. Donovan Head from the State Charter Schools Commission might be in here. I can say, before I was in this role, I was at the State Charter Schools Commission. I left in 2019, and I was there 6 years, and we closed 6 schools. That's not an average. I just know they're very judicious about approvals, and then they're serious about renewals if the school is not meeting performance.
Okay, because I think I saw somewhere there are like 2 closed in 24. I'm not sure what it has been before.
And I'm glad you brought that up because their charters, I believe, are 5 years, and then they're reviewed. And that's the only school option in the state that has that. Like if you've got a failing, residency school in Gwinnett County or whatnot, they're not going to shut that down. It can continue to fail. These charter schools, if they're deemed that they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then they'd be shut down, which I don't think that's a bad thing.
Correct, but if we've just approved a large number recently, we could see in 5 years that our definition of high quality has changed because we really don't have high quality yet. So that's my only concern. If we're approving a lot now, that in 3 years we'll see a bunch of like charter schools that popped up in Cobb that went away because they just weren't high quality. So, but thank you for that answer that question.
Yeah, that also add that 85% of the charter schools in the state outperform their local school district.
Okay, as promised, number 25.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we got a motion approved. We got a second very quickly. Okay, I believe we had an amendment that was discussed on this. I believe
Line 83.
number 3. Yes, go ahead with your
Thank you,
amendment.
Mr. Chair. Line 83, I believe that's the only place it's referred to in the bill. From 10 to 30, strike this.
Or 10 to 20.
10 to 20?
That's what you said in the amendment.
Oh, I thought we got 30. Did we get 30 or 20?
Oh, yeah, you said you read it.
Shall we roll the tape? I'm joking.
We did land on 30.
Okay. 30?
30.
We good?
No. I'm hearing your amendment. Tell me what your number is.
The reason
My number was 30.
Okay.
I said 20 or
Senator.
30, and then I said 30, and we got 30.
30, would you take 30?
Okay,
as a
if you don't want
friendly
to take 30, that's fine. We can pull it down. I mean, we don't need the amendment.
Can I explain? The reason that this doesn't have to do with the review process. This 10-day mark says that if you tell a charter school no, within 10 days you have to tell them why you told them no. It doesn't say you have 10 days to review. And so we agreed to extend it to 20. The reason that we reined it in from 60 is that it was messing with the facility procurement process. Once a school's approved, the next day they have to start procuring a facility. So 60 was way too long. 30, frankly, is also long, but especially because I'm not aware of a district that doesn't tell the school at the time of denial what the rationale for denial is. So the 60-day was a legacy date that was way too long anyway, but I mean, 10 to 20 is doable and reasonable. I don't think a district would need 30 days to figure out why they've already told a school no.
Representative, you good to go with 20?
We can go with 20. That's
Okay.
fine.
Second.
Well, hold on a second. Senator, is that friendly with you?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we're going to go quick now, representatives. We got other bills to talk about here.
Not to muddy the water, but for my superintendents that are texting me right now, should we consider, is the interpretation and the intention business days or calendar days? I
That's
don't
a good
care.
point.
I just want to make sure that we're clear so that people know.
That's a good question.
Business days is fine? Okay.
Legislative council, what?
Well, yeah, the standard rule is if it doesn't state, it's calendar days, but if the amendment is going to be 20 business days, then that's what the amendment is.
Okay, we're going back, Representative, to what you want to state. You want 20 days?
You applied December 20th, and they turned it down December 20th. They're on break, so 20 days does you no good. because
You mean
you're
20
not-
business days or 20?
20 days, I mean, you've got to give them a month. I mean, so, you got to do. I'm sorry, we're having a cycle.
How about, instead of 30 days, instead of 10 days, we do 20 business days? And there was much
Okay.
rejoicing.
All right,
That
we're
was
hearing the
painful.
amendment. All right. Seeing no more questions on the amendment to this bill to take it from 10 to 20 business days. Do we have a motion for that amendment? I believe, do we? Yes. We got a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We do have a second. All right, question. We're
Now,
Here
I'm
we
just
go.
saying, personally, I think for their benefit, I think 30 calendar days were a much better option than the 20 business days.
Okay, but that's not what, that's
up to
not,
them. That's up to them, but I mean,
okay, thank you. That we've got an amendment for 20 business days. We've got a second. We're going to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, that one passes. Now, we're going on to vote on the bill. Let me pull it up. I've got LC 492365S is what we are voting on as amended by this group. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. That bill carries. Thank you. That's an interesting aye. There, but
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee
Thank
members.
you. Good
Thank you so
job,
much.
Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Who is going to carry this bill?
I believe Representative Hilton.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, okay, we're going to continue to try to use our time wisely, members. I saw the President Pro Tem come in the room. SB 123, President Pro Tem, if you would, right down here in front of us. Thank you for coming today. I know you've been pulled out of meetings and moving as fast as any with what you've got going on today. So
thank you, Mr. Chairman. It has been a busy day for many of us, and I appreciate that. And thank you for hearing from me now, and thank you for the time from the committee.
we are proud of your bill, and thank you for presenting. And Senate Bill 123, if you would read your LC number to us, and I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Let's see. What do we have? LC 492214, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
it is
good.
your mic.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I appreciate the chance to talk about something that has fallen on my radar screen and is of great interest, and I think it'll be of great interest to this committee. I'm presenting to you Senate Bill 123 to address the pressing issue that we've got that continues to plague our public schools here in Georgia, and that is one of chronic absenteeism. Let me share a little statistic. Last year, 22.6% of students in Georgia public schools across our state were chronically absent. Chronically absent being defined as missing 10% or more of the school days that the kids are supposed to be attending. To put that in perspective and to think about how this number has changed a little bit over time, we would naturally have expected that number to spike during COVID, and it did. The number was about 9.5% pre-COVID. It got as high as about 25.5 or 26% during COVID, and while we would like to have seen it gone back to the 9.5 or less, now that we're beyond COVID, unfortunately, we're still at about 22.5%. The other arresting figure that I'll give you is that percentage of school kids represents about 360,000 students in Georgia that are chronically absent. I don't need to tell this committee has devoted much of its time and energies to trying to make our educational system here in Georgia better. The kids have to be in their seats if they're going to learn. If they're not in their seats learning, they're not going to be literate. If they're not literate, they're not going to graduate. If they don't graduate, they're not going to be able to reach for the Georgia dream, the American dream, however we want to put that. But beyond just the academics, it's also the time that the kids that are not in school, they miss those critical moments that may be of significant importance in their development as a child. It may be something that sparks something in them that they think they want to move on and do something beyond where they are. And so it all boils down to they've got to be in school to have those experiences. If I can, Mr. Chairman, I'll just go through the sections of the bill and speak to them. If I get long-winded, you just give me a nod and tell me to cut it off, and I'll wrap it up, but I'll try to go efficiently. Section 1, you'll see we're revising the term mandatory attendance to compulsory attendance. That's just really a modernizing of the language. Section 2, you'll see it updates the section regarding compulsory attendance. You'll find in lines 30 through 32 to clarify the definition for the terms of parent and guardian. This now will refer to parent, legal guardian, custodian, or any other individual who holds legal authority to act on behalf of the child. So again, a broadening, I think, a modernization of what we think of as that term. Lines 50 through 52, you'll see that this strikes provisions regarding excused absences for students who are participating in the National Guard or military service, but you'll see that later in the bill. So it's stricken there for placement purposes, but it's added back in later on. Lines 65 and 60 through 69 ensure that students are not penalized for missing schools due to exemptions or excused absences. We want to make sure that those kids that have those, whether it's medical or other excused days, don't count toward the absenteeism number. Line 70 establishes that no student can be expelled for absences alone. Moving on to Section 3. It revises the subsections involving the School Climate Committee. That's something that was created in 2005. You know, with our conversations, my office started working on this over the summer, and as I told the subcommittee that heard this stemmed from some information that I learned about last summer and came back to Georgia from a trip and thought we need to look and see what those numbers are here in Georgia, and they were, I would tell you, shocking, like I'm sure they are to you. But also learned that there's something called a School Climate Committee that exists. It was created in 2005. And so currently, each county is supposed to have a School Climate Committee. What we have learned is that across the state, there are some school climate committees that are meeting regularly and doing what they were intended to do, which was primarily deal with issues of morale and safety. But there are a lot of school climate committees that appear not to be meeting regularly. And while we want to delve into that and find out more about that, it may be that our information is not perfect on that, but nonetheless, the lack of seeing activity suggests that there needs to be more activity. When you look at the 159 counties, only one county in our state is not at 10% or greater with chronically absent kids. So it's a problem all across the state. The committees, as y'all may know, I did not know before working on this, are assembled by the Chief Superior Court Judge of the county, and members of the committee can include various community partners and leaders such as juvenile court judges, community boards of health, as well as the superintendent. The School Climate Committee really works to bring together officials and folks in the community so they can talk about the community problem and also find a community-based solution. I think it's important to note that the people that will populate these committees are going to be local folks figuring out what the local solution is to their particular problem. Lines 182 through 185 reintroduces the regular meeting requirement of these school climate committees that was formed in 2025. If this bill is passed, it would require the committee to meet at least twice a year, starting in November of this year. I think these couple of changes will encourage these climate committees to begin meeting. And also, we've added a reporting requirement, a new reporting requirement for the Department of Education, which will begin in 2026. I've also got some reporting requirements to us as legislators. Mr. Chairman, you'll see in lines 186 through 193, starting November 1 of the even-numbered years, the Department of Education will be required to submit a county-by-county report to the chairpersons of the House and Senate Education Committees. And again, part of that, the thinking behind that, as I said to the previous committee when I presented, is I don't want to suggest that this is the silver bullet for fixing absenteeism in Georgia. I don't know exactly what that bullet would look like. What I do want to do is shine a light on the problem, get the school climate committees reinvigorated, get the local communities thinking about this problem and fashioning their own solutions. And let us as a legislature continue to look at this and work on this. As I'd mentioned to you, Mr. Chairman, we are forming a Senate study committee that will work on this summer for the purpose of just getting more information. I would like to think that we'll come back in 26 and we'll have better ideas about what might we need to do to better address the problem and fashion a solution. So I'm not trying to fix all the world's problems of this today with this bill, so I admit this is not intended to be sold to y'all as this is the fix, but I think it's the right step at the right moment to get things moving in the right direction. Lines 198, again, talks about the attendance review team. That's the entity or the teams that are formed for the purpose of addressing the solution on a local basis. The bill defines local school system chronic absenteeism rate by the number of chronically absent students in the local school system. And I think maybe the last thing I'll mention is there's two metrics. If the local school system, that is the entire system, has a chronic absenteeism rate of 10% or higher, they must establish an attendance review team for the entire school system. If a particular school has a chronic absenteeism rate of 15% or higher, then there needs to be a attendance review team for that particular school. And with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your attention, and that really is what we're trying to do, identifying the problem. I would propose as an interim solution, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, President Pro Tem, and let me make a couple of statements to you directly. Great job. Thank you. Great bill. Definitely a needed topic to be looked at in the state, not just because of COVID. Being absent from school and chronic absenteeism was a problem before COVID. And as we well know, some systems, some schools address it better. I want to point out to the members that, and I believe you know this, you just might not have thought about it, that sometimes in some of our students, their best place they go during any day is the school. It's not only the place that feeds them and they got the good environment and the caring environment, knowing that what could be happening around them, and also knowing members of students that don't make the decision whether they go to school or not, the parent does because of their age, to getting up. So there are quite a few students that wouldn't be chronically absent if it was their choice and their ability. So keep that in mind too. Climate is important. We determined that in 2005 when Senator, when we set up that committee, and thank you for including this here. And then the team to work on this. It takes a team to make the relationship with the family, to find out the problem, to get the child there. And we did learn from COVID, I will tell you, that best way to teach a kid is one-on-one and one-on-two, one-on-three at school, not on the computer. It can be done on the computer, but we found the best spot was having the educator in the room with the children. So very, very good job with this. I will tell you, this is something that we're planning on also studying, taking a look at, and trying to join with you in making a difference here. With that, let me start with number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Pro Tem. I want to say that you addressed the issue as far as the children, the best places to be in school. A lot of the children are getting into trouble when they're absent, and I'm aware of that in my community. I've got firsthand experience with some of that stuff. So I agree with you completely that we need to look at this issue. And the second thing is at the appropriate time.
We'll keep you marked. We'll go around the room quickly. 25.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate this bill, and attendance is critical, as you know, and it's definitely an issue in the state. It's been an issue for a long time, and appreciate you addressing it the way we are. Question for you, line 70. You got no student shall be expelled from public school in state solely to students' absences. Will that eliminate schools withdrawing students for excessive absences, 16 to 18? Once you get to a certain age, you're kind of on, you will see some schools, they may miss 20 days in a row and refuse to come into school, then those days still count against the system. So will that eliminate that as well?
That is the intent, is that missed days can't, unexcused absences can't be a reason to expel the child. Yes, sir.
So if they miss 30, 40 days in a row in the fall, I mean, it's going to be an F when they come back. But, I mean, if they don't come back, does that school system still get dinged along the way because the kid refused to come in and they couldn't withdraw them?
You're asking about the funding. Does the funding continue? I don't really know that I know that question.
You kind of mentioned it goes, if you have a certain percentage of days, I think, you go to another level of creating the committee or whatever else.
Well,
so those extra days would, even though the kid refuses to come in and the parents can't do anything with them because they're 17. And they have 10 credits, 10 school credits.
Yeah, if I understand the question, I don't think it's the number of days that go toward the 10% or 15% metric. Those are the number of students, the percentage of students. So if 10% of the students are chronically absent or not, and that's defined as missing 10% or more, then the review team has to be formed. And then if it's 15%, then one has to be formed for the school.
Yeah, my only concern, I 100% agree with everything you're doing, is if the kid's missed 20, 30 days in a row and he's going to fail that class, what kind of issues is that going to create inside the classroom at the same time when they come back? Knowing he's got an F at the end of the semester, if it's been inexcused absences, there's no way he or she can pass.
I guess my answer to that would be, it would seem at that point to be a binary choice. They're either in school or they're not. And I would think every day that the child is in the seat in school, even if we know how the story ends and what the grade is going to be, that child is going to be better served being in the seat in school for as many days as possible.
I agree. If we can get him in the seat, that'll be great. So anyway, thank you, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, let's keep moving quickly here. I believe number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for this bill. And I also want to thank you for lines 192 and 193, because a lot of times we have reports that go to the chairman, and that's great, but as members, we just don't know how to find it. So this is probably a request to DOE. There's a lot of reports that are out there that go to the chairman. If we could get those, that would be helpful as we discuss future legislation, whether it's charter schools or anything like this. And I think that will be my ideal situation, would be to have this report also sent to the members of the General Assembly. But I don't want to do that because we need the bill to move. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Ms. Vice Chair.
Thank you, President Pro Tem, on this very excellent bill. I do agree with you. This is a measure that we need to look at moving forward. And I was just curious, this map that was included in our folder, is this a 2024 data? Is that?
Yes, ma'am. 2024 numbers.
Okay, great, because I'm going to take this and look at it more, because since we're using bottom 25% performing schools as a metric on several of our other issues that we're doing, I'm interested in seeing this attendance and how it correlates with that. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Number 22.
Thank you so much for bringing this. And I would like, since you're doing a study committee and we're talking about doing a committee to look at this, I would really like to see this data correlated with literacy rates in our schools, and looking at that in a table. I think that would be very instructive.
I think that's a great idea.
Great. Seeing no more lights, let's figure number 12. There I go. I didn't mess up that time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that Senate Bill 123, LC 492214, receive the due pass designation.
Second. We have a motion, due pass, and a second. He's already read the LC number there in his motion. Seeing and hearing no other discussion or amendments, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Good job, Mr. Pro Tem. Who is going to carry this bill for you?
I think Chairman Dubnik.
Chairman Dubnik.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
All right.
Congratulations. Good choice of picking somebody to carry it for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all on the committee.
Yes, sir. All right, let's continue to move on. I believe we've got enough time to do our last one here. Wait a minute. Let's look and see. We have exhausted the list, have we not? That's a good thing. I was gonna. Wait a minute. Oh, you're right. We have not. I knew that it was Representative Kemp. We were gonna run out of here on you, but. He's worked hard on this bill. Come on up here, Senator. I know we got enough time to get you done too. So let me pull your bill out. I'm gonna ask you to read your LC number to us, and then we'll have the discussion.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm reading from LC 492358S.
Perfect. That's
All
it.
right.
It is your mic.
Wonderful. I know UGA plays at 4:30, so we're going to make it in time to see them play. Yeah. Oh, Gonzaga plays at 4:30. I didn't pay attention. Okay, there we go. All right.
Watch out. Georgia Tech, boy.
Right. Members, this bill is a simple bill, and I just thank you all so much for having me. Senator Rashawn Kemp, I represent portions of Atlanta. This bill has been amended because of the great work that my friend, Representative Bethany Ballard, has done. We heard her today in the Senate Education Committee. The goal is to ensure that we are preparing our teachers to teach students how to read properly and removing what has been found to be a very ineffective way to teach kids how to teach reading. And so Senate Bill 93 now just simply makes sure that at the PSC level, we are preparing teachers to educate kids to read by using strategies that are explicitly aligned to the science of reading. And so very simply, that's what that does. The previous version of the bill eliminated 3Qing, but my good friend, Representative Bethany Ballard, is taking care of that in her House Bill 307. And so this is a companion piece to make sure that not only are we not teaching kids to read using that method, we're not preparing teachers to use that method as they're being taught to get into the profession. So with that, I will take any questions you may have and ask for favorable consideration from the committee.
Great, Senator. Good job, good bill, and thank you for working with Representative Ballard, as both of y'all are obviously passionate about educating children and teaching them to read. So thank you with that. We'll start with number 14.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for bringing this bill, and at the appropriate time, I'd like to do it. Wanted to get out there first.
Good job. Good job. I like that. Let me point out that we have Scott Johnson sitting in there, the director for the Literacy Council. Scott, welcome. Thank you for always coming. And anybody talking about literacy, this gentleman will show up and put his energy and time in there and making a huge difference in my eyes in the state of Georgia in the reading level. So thank you, Mr. Johnson. And believe it or not, number 14, it is appropriate time.
I'd like to move that we pass. Let me get the right bill in front of me.
Read your LC number, please.
I moved it. I had packed up. It's SB 93 LC 492358S.
That's correct. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We do have a second. Fantastic. Members, I think we're ready to vote on this. I don't see any other discussion on this bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Great. Senator, who is going to carry your bill?
I would love for our literacy champion to carry this bill.
Fantastic. Good pick and good job. Senator, thank you. Let's get that thing moving in rules so we can help the literacy efforts out here. Visitors, thank you very much for coming. I want to point out to the visitors and members, I'm going to guess this by just looking around the room. We have the most visitors of any committee, and that shows your desire to support the children in the state of Georgia. Definitely the most visitors of folks that don't work down here on a daily basis. Members, I hope you take that as drive to come over here and sit back here and make this process work. So thank y'all. Safe travels. We'll see you tomorrow. Get ready for a busy week next week, members.
Yes.